Hi everyone. I want to talk to you a little bit about research today as we go into Unit 4. I think that the biggest research myth I hear is that you read all the things and then you regurgitate the things. Specifically, you plug in a certain amount of quotes directly, and then that is check research, right? And while it can be really tedious to read a lot of information, I think that the only way that we can write and really think critically is to read what a lot of people are saying about a conversation. So a lot of these topics that you're going to explore represent ongoing discussions, both within academic fields, but also kind of personally, things that matter to us. And a lot of things have been said about it. And we don't want to just like stumble into the room and say something without having an awareness of the context of that room. So what else is going on with the people that are already having this conversation? And I think that is the biggest difference between an opinion-based essay and a critical analysis. So think of it in this way. An opinion-based essay, if you've ever read an op-ed from a newspaper or watched a news organization where they have like the little opinion segments on their show, the difference is that opinion pieces don't really care about the audience. They're not having a conversation. They're just standing in a room and kind of presenting their perspective, but they're not at all interested in receiving feedback for that perspective. Versus a critical analysis or a research essay is asking us to enter into a conversation with other people. And the only way to do that successfully is that we have to kind of read what other people are saying and then orient ourselves within that discussion. So when we're looking for critical analysis, it's not about winning or losing a conversation. And so when we go into picking our topics, we need to think about them objectively. So instead of posing a research question that is yes or no, or already kind of shows what you think about the thing, we may want to be a little bit more broad in our approach. So instead of saying, I'm going to talk about bullying because bullying is bad, well, I don't know of anybody that's going to disagree with you. I hope not, right? So that's not really going to get you anywhere in terms of progressing a conversation. Instead, you may say something like, how does bullying affect this specific group of people? Or how has social media changed bullying in that specific field? And so posing questions that are more of a how does this work kind of frame instead of a is this good, is this bad, or should we do something, should we not do something? Those kinds of questions set you up for an opinion essay, which is fine in certain settings, but this setting is about research. It's about asking questions and learning what other people are saying. And then after you write all the things, you can kind of say, here's where I stand on this line that people are kind of drawing. So for discussion 4.1, the analytical reading response, look to engage the reader beyond I agree, I disagree, right? So you want to think of it more as the author says blank, and blank is what I think about that thing, right? And I think about that thing, it's not just yes or no, it's more complex, right? So the more complex, the less yes or no kinds of questions, the better your research essay is going to be. So you want to be thinking about it maybe in terms of 4 steps, okay? What, right? So what does the author argue? And you want to be more specific, right? You don't want to just say the author says that bullying is bad. Okay, that's not going to cut it. What does he say about bullying specifically? How is it bad? In what context? Why is he making those statements, right? So what is it that they're arguing? 2, how does the text present this argument? So think back to the rhetorical appeals from the last unit, where we talked about how the packaging of information is as important in some ways and more influential in some ways than the actual information that's within that packet. So how is the author presenting their information, and does that affect the way that we receive that information? Maybe not for the better. Then move into why. So why are they talking about this? What is at stake? here? Why did they feel the need to write this or into join this conversation? And then finally, 4, who is the audience? So who are they writing to? And that's kind of rhetorical, but it's thinking a little bit bigger in terms of, is this a scholar writing to a scholar? Is this a journalist writing to his audience? Is this a victim of bullying, if that is your specific task? And then how does that change the way we receive the information? Does it make it a source that is usable or not? Okay, and then we move into discussion 4.2, verifying claims. This is important because we have to move away from our own echo chambers. So if you are setting yourself up, you're picking a topic that you already feel very strongly about, you're probably not going to see a lot of information, right? Not at least not a whole picture of that information. So the more specific, for instance, the search that you put into Google Earth, the more specific and the more on the ground result you're going to get. If you put an exact address down, you're going to get that, versus if you say Atlanta or West Georgia or something like that, you're going to get a broader perspective, right? So we want to zoom out a little bit, and when we're doing these searches, so that we're not pigeonholing ourselves, right? That we're not only seeing a sample of the much larger conversation. So if you are going to write about climate change and you decide to search something that is very specific, on the screen it looks like a lot of people may agree with you in that position, but that screen in Galileo is just a sampling of a much larger, much more full breadth of research that may not agree with you, right? So when we go into that, make sure that we're using general terms, avoid using terms that confirm your own perspective of the article, and kind of be aware of biases. So we are humans, we have bias. Anything on the internet has bias because it was made by humans. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just we want to be aware that, okay, this source is pandering to a very specific kind of audience, which means that that information may not be as objective as you need for a research project. Okay, and I just kind of wanted to do an overview of that. So when we're verifying claims, make sure that we are being very general and that we are finding more than one instance of this confirmation, right? It's not just one guy says, yeah, that one article's cool, right? We want to make sure that more than one person and more than one reputable person is finding this valid, okay? So I am grading all of the things. I'm getting back into the swing of things. I had a death in the family a couple weeks ago, and so I'm trying to like reorient myself. I'm also in grad school, so I get it, right? The struggle is very much present and real in my life right now. I'm going to let you revise anything that you want. The feedback that I'm giving at some point may be a little general. Mostly what I'm seeing is that we can always be more specific, right? So if you're saying that somebody does blank, well, you need to explain exactly how they do that thing and why they do that thing, right? Always push further and always assume that the reader has no information and you need to provide them with as much intel as you can. Okay, so email me. I'll open all of the things. I think I messed up with the calendar this year and something weird happened with the deadlines, but I'll go back in and fix that. So that's on me. But thank you for being patient, and let me know if you have any questions.